I know. It's your brother. I'm not gonna say anything about your brother, but it's so obvious. It's like, it's your brother. I'm not gonna say anything about your brother, but it's so obvious. It's like,
Wow, that one line is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and today we're going to break it down, not just for what she said, but how she said it, what it implies, and why this moment is a perfect example of covert manipulation, often used by narcissists and emotionally controlling partners. Let's get into it, but before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. Okay, guys, I'm going to be honest here. I never really followed the legal battles that Harry and Meghan went through, so I had to do quite a bit of research to figure out basically the setting of this clip and why Meghan said that. Back in 2019, Meghan filed a major lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday because they published a private handwritten letter she wrote to her estranged father, Thomas Markle. Now, I'm not going to get into that story. I have major opinions about that one, but I'm not going to talk about it here. She accused the tabloid of violating her privacy and copyright, and this case was a big deal because it wasn't just about the media. It became a war over her narrative, her voice, and her control over it. Now enter Jason Knopf, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce his name correctly. Jason was a former communications secretary for Harry and Meghan, but by the time this lawsuit was underway, he was working for Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. And out of nowhere, he submitted a witness statement in the lawsuit, and it was a statement that contradicted Meghan's claims. Specifically, Meghan had told the court that she didn't collaborate with the authors of Finding Freedom. We know she did, that she had nothing to do with the book that painted her in a glowing light. But Jason came forward with emails proving otherwise. He showed that Meghan had sent him, meaning Jason, talking points to share with the authors, and that she did, in fact, have a hand in shaping the narrative. And just like that, Meghan's credibility was called into question, not just in court, but in the global press. Now, here's the twist that makes this moment in the documentary so loaded. Jason, at the time that he made the statement, was working under Prince William's office. So Harry and Meghan, while never saying it outright, heavily imply that Jason didn't act alone, that he couldn't have submitted that damaging testimony without permission from someone above. And that brings us back to that scene in the Netflix mockumentary. Megan turns to Harry and says, "It's your brother, so I'm not going to say anything." But make no mistake, she is saying many, many things. That line is calculated, it's emotionally loaded. She's framing herself as restrained, as the one choosing peace, while dropping a massive implication at Harry's feet. The implication being, your brother betrayed me, but I won't be the one to say it. You know, and now it's your move. This is why this moment hits so hard, not because of what is said, but because of what is implied. And that's exactly the kind of dynamic we see in covert manipulation, which is what we're going to get into next. Because that one sentence, that tiny shrug of, "I'm not going to say anything," is doing a lot of emotional work. Before we go any further, let's talk about what this actually is. Because this moment where Megan says, "It's your brother, so I'm not going to say anything," that's not just casual conversation. That's a textbook example of something called covert manipulation. Covert manipulation is when someone tries to control or influence a situation or another person, but they do it indirectly. They never say the thing out loud. They don't make a direct demand. Instead, they imply, suggest, guilt trip, or emotionally bait you while keeping their hands clean. It's manipulative, but it's hidden behind a mask of innocence. Let me give you a simple example. Someone might say, "You can go hang out with them if you want. I'll be fine, I guess." They're not telling you not to go, but now you're feeling guilty. You're feeling torn. You second guess yourself, and that's the point. That's covert manipulation. It's subtle, it's emotionally loaded, and it creates confusion, especially if you're someone with empathy, someone who wants to do the right thing. It's also incredibly effective at isolating someone without ever having to say, I want you to cut that person off. So when Megan says, I'm not going to say anything, but clearly implies that Harry's brother is the villain here, she's not staying neutral. She's positioning herself as the hurt party and putting Harry in the role of the loyal protector, someone who now feels they need to prove which side he's on. And this is how it works: nothing direct, no overt conflict, just a carefully crafted suggestion that triggers confusion, loyalty shifts, and emotional labor, all without looking like an attack. And that's why it's so hard to spot when you're in it. Megan is showing this, what I would call this illusion of restraint. It's when someone makes a calculated statement that appears to be neutral or selfless, but it's actually very deeply loaded. When she says, I'm not going to say anything, she's trying to look like she's taking the high road while still pointing a giant neon arrow at the person she clearly believes is responsible. It's like whispering, I'm not one to gossip, right before dropping the hottest tea of the day. The message is loud and clear. I know something, you probably know it too, but I'm choosing to be the bigger person while letting you sit in that implication. This is where the manipulation really kicks in. Narcissists and people with strong manipulative tendencies love using implication over direct statements because implications give them plausible deniability. They let them avoid conflict directly and still allow them to plant the seed of doubt, fear, or division. She didn't say, Your brother leaked this to the press. She said, It's your brother, so I'm not going to say anything. What she's really saying is, You know it's him. I know it's him. And if you don't do something about it, I'm going to question where your loyalty is. It's not about truth, it's about pressure, emotional pressure. This kind of implication is a classic tool in narcissistic isolation tactics. The narcissist doesn't need to explicitly tell you to cut off family or friends. All they have to do is suggest that your loved ones are untrustworthy, dangerous, maybe betraying you behind your back. And now you're on edge. You're second guessing your relationships. You're being pulled into their narrative, even if it's just a whisper. This makes the partner, who in this case is Harry, feel like they need to choose sides without ever being asked directly to do so. And the best part for the manipulator, they can always fall back on, I didn't say anything, that's your interpretation. I did a video earlier this week about Princess Eugenie and Meghan's conflict and this manipulation tactic that I've noticed in a lot of narcissists where they make you pick sides, and if you don't, then you're not loyal to them. I'm going to drop a link to that in the description of this video because it ties in hand with what's happening here. I think we can see a pattern of behavior from Megan, and which is something I've noticed in many, many narcissists. They all play from the same playbook or whatever the phrase is. And that's why it's so important to study these behaviors because they all do similar things. The other thing that this tactic does is it forces the partner to do the emotional labor. Emotional labor is the invisible mental and emotional work someone does to manage a relationship. The problem solving, the peacekeeping, the decoding of subtle messages, the emotional caretaking. And at this moment, Harry becomes responsible for all of it. He now has to interpret what Megan's not saying, decide what to do with the implication she's left hanging in the air, manage his own emotional response to the idea that his brother, someone he's deeply bonded to, may have betrayed him. And then, on top of all of that, he's expected to comfort Megan, validate her unspoken feelings, and potentially prove where his loyalty lies. All of that work gets dumped on him, and that's not an accident, that's the design. This is how emotional labor becomes a manipulation tool. The narcissist or emotionally manipulative partner creates a mess, but they do it so subtly that you're the one that ends up cleaning it up. They don't say the hard thing, they don't take the risk of confrontation. Instead, they imply something painful, and you're left doing all the work, thinking about it, feeling it, reacting to it. And here's where it gets even a little bit trickier. If Harry ever questioned Megan about what she meant in that moment, if he said, Are you blaming my brother? She could instantly deflect with, I never said that. You're reading into it. Wow, you really think that little of me? And now he becomes the one in the wrong for reacting to something that she never technically said. That's gaslighting, not because someone is outright denying reality, but because they're creating a scenario where you're forced to question your own perception. It's emotional misdirection. You're left thinking, did I overreact? Did I misunderstand? Am I projecting? Meanwhile, the person who created the tension pretends to be innocent. That's the power of covert manipulation. It looks passive, but it's aggressively controlling. And over time, when this kind of thing happens again and again, the implied messages, the emotional labor, the subtle guilt, the plausible deniability, the victim begins to doubt their own instincts and starts relying more and more on the manipulator to tell them what's real. This is the trap. It's not just emotional exhaustion, but it's emotional dependency. Megan doesn't have to make a case or provide evidence, explain her feelings. All she has to do is plant the idea and let Harry run around in circles trying to decode what she meant, reassure her of his loyalty, and manage his own emotions around his brother. What makes this tactic even more effective is the performance of innocence. The tone, the facial expression, the body language, all of it is crafted to say, I'm not the villain here. I'm being so considerate. I'm protecting your family. But the underlying message, it's anything but considerate. It's a power play. It's manipulation wrapped up in a pretty bow. I'm not here to debate whether Megan is telling the truth or whether Harry's brother did something shady. That's not what this is about. What we're analyzing here is the behavior, not the accuracy of the accusation, but the way it's delivered. Because this kind of dynamic shows up in all kinds of relationships, in romantic ones, with your family, and professional ones. It's how narcissists often maintain control, say less, imply more, play the victim while pulling the strings, isolate you without ever looking like they told you to walk away. And if you've ever been in a relationship like that, you know how much damage it does quietly, subtly, over time. So the next time someone says, I'm not going to say anything, pay close attention because sometimes what they're not saying is the loudest thing in the room. Let me know in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment like this where someone pretended to be neutral, but you could feel the manipulation under the surface? And if you're someone who's still untangling yourself from that kind of relationship, just know you're not losing it. You were just covertly manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to play the game. I see you, and you're not alone. If this video was interesting to you, please like and subscribe. If you feel comfortable, please share your stories in the comments. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Oh, I forgot to say, hit that notification bell so you'll know every time I drop a new video. I want to thank you all so much for listening, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.